Well, I guess we're not having a intro music.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, for whatever reason. Oh, there it goes. All right. Sorry, guys, that you're watching me goof up. Enjoy the intro.
Can't accept the loss, I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting nobody rob me of my victory. Number one, that's what I'm meant to be. When by any means, only thing that makes sense to me, I can make nice or make history. I got that dog in me, yeah, turn me up. Big energy, got the crowd going nuts. I got that dog in me, I take on anyone, I don't need a one-on-one. I got that dog in me, yeah. I'm talking all bite, no bark. I could rip your squad apart. I got that dog in me, so what's up? Yeah. So what's up?
And two of you got to see what it's like, the chaos that starts off before I get into the show. And that's what happens if you take a 2-week hiatus. It's all good, though. Seth, how you doing, brother?
Great, man. Great to be back. Yeah, 2 weeks, a long time. Football world.
Yes, it is. In fact, we got a ton to cover, but we're only going to cover enough for an hour. And plus, when he walked in, he had what I thought was a fine beverage. I said, "Are you celebrating something?" And he was like, "No,
popping the bubbly."
Yeah, that's right.
Tennessee going to the playoffs.
It is his sparkling water. I was like, man, why does it look like it's in a champagne bottle?
Yeah, trying to get a new sponsorship. So Saratoga, reach out to us.
There you go. So today, fellas and gals, we will be talking about the college football playoffs. The rankings just came out. 12 teams already seeded right now. Of course, it's contingent on what is going on with the conference championships, which we will be predicting later tonight. We'll talk a little bit about some of the hoopla, a particular coach down in hurricane territory that is not too happy about, a certain team being put in over his, and
boo-hoo.
Yeah, I know, quit crying. And also, a little back and forth, is Ryan Day, is he going to lose his job if he doesn't make it to the championship? A lot of intrigue going on. We'll be talking some surprises and disappointments. And we will be discussing the NFL playoff picture and try to like some clarity right now.
It's getting close. What do we got? 4 weeks left?
5 weeks.
5 weeks?
5 weeks left.
Man, it's just flown by.
Yeah, it did. I mean, fantasy football does it too. And if y'all want us to discuss anything, by all means, pop it up in the comments. I won't get it right to it at that second. Please allow me and Seth to finish what we're talking about, and then we'll hit it up. So first things first, we're going to hit up the college football playoffs. Rankings just came out, and of course, no surprise, the unanimous number one was Oregon. This is, it is what it is. I mean, they're just curb stomping some teams, and they finally seem to have the right balance of offense and defense. Seth, what's your idea on that?
Yeah, I mean, that was clearly the right choice of number one. I mean, Oregon, only undefeated team. They had one close game against Wisconsin a couple weeks ago. But other than that, like you said, they've just been stomping teams, and they're just super balanced. I mean, run, pass, defense. Those teams in the past with Chip Kelly, they were all offense. But, now they got a defensive coach over there, and they can play some defense with the big boys. So, yeah, clearly that was the right call. After that, it kind of gets a little iffy. But
yeah, and I mean, that's when it starts to the top four that I saw and everything, there's one that I was like, but basically the way that they have it ranked and everything like that from what I'm reading. But, and also taking account the fact that as far as like the bye weeks and stuff, it goes to the conference champion that is ranked higher. So if there is someone that is, let's say, number 3 in the rankings, like Penn State, they're not going to get that bye week unless they beat Oregon. So Number 2 seed, also not really much of a surprise, Texas. I mean, the only hiccup they really had was against Georgia, in which they got beat down.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things where I wasn't really surprised about it, but also at the same time, selection committee, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, SEC team, even though they didn't play a really hard SEC schedule this season, one loss, they pretty much were the de facto choice. I mean, Georgia did beat them pretty bad, but other than that, they had a great season. Just dominated Michigan up in the big house, which we saw Ohio State can't do. So, it makes sense to me.
Well, I'm going to just go ahead and go through all the bye week ones as far as right now. Number 8, SMU is actually on slide to get the 3rd bye week for the season. That's that whole part that I was talking about with the higher ranked conference champions. And SMU really did surprise some teams. They're very surprising for me this year. I mean, they spent a lot of money in the off season, bringing in the recruits and everything like that. And with what happened with Miami and, them losing Syracuse, they couldn't handle business. SMU, of course, I was looking forward to an SMU Miami championship game. Instead, we're going to get Clemson and SMU. Yeah. If Clemson,
what a gift to Clemson that was.
Yeah. It's kind of strange to, if SMU loses, though, would Miami be able to actually sneak into the playoffs?
If SMU loses, I mean, obviously Clemson slides in. I don't think so. I mean, I think they would put Bama in.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute.
I guess it's possible, if SMU lost and then let's say, I don't know, Arizona State lost.
Yeah.
Because that would put Iowa State in. I guess some crazy things could happen where Miami can get back in, but I mean, they don't deserve it after the last 3 weeks, losing 2 games to unranked teams. I mean, that's their fault.
Yes. No, and I agree with that. And the last team that is right now we didn't really talk much about SMU. I mean, they got a really good quarterback. Coach, I read up on him a little bit. He's done some really good work. I mean, this is a really good surprise in my opinion, because SMU, of course, had the death penalty back in the 80s when they had players like Eric Dickerson and a couple other stars like that were able to go through that school. And then when they got hit with the recruiting scandals that, of course, now the NIL deals nixed, it's really good to see them back up to where they once were.
Yeah, it's like they've taken TCU's spot. TCU would just be that other Texas team that would rise up every couple years.
Yeah.
And now SMU is that team. But yeah, Rat Lashley's done a fantastic job there. Kind of a career coordinator for Auburn. I think Miami, he's been all over the place. But yeah, they hit the transfer market hard and their quarterback is playing great.
Yeah. And it helps when you are in a football hotbed like Texas.
And I mean, that schedule, once again, not very tough. They did take care of Louisville and, took care of business, but they just haven't played many people.
Yep. And the last team that is actually on the bye right now, Boise State of the Mountain West Conference. This is one of those crazy ones that they were talking about. I actually love this because they got the best running back in the nation right now, and Gentry, who is, I think, about to hit 2,000 yards.
Yeah, it's fun to watch.
And, Maddox is actually a really good quarterback. The only thing is that they can't really stop anyone on defense. I mean,
that's going to be a problem against the big boys.
Exactly. So rounding out the rest of the teams, we got kind of briefly touched up on them. Penn State is at 3. 4 is Notre Dame. 5 is Georgia, which I was like, okay. Number 6 is Ohio State, who fell 4 spots after that tough loss to Michigan, which no one thought was going to happen.
No, no one except Desmond Howard.
Exactly.
He picked him on game day.
Well, I mean, and then afterwards they planted the flag right there in the middle of the stadium, and that showed more fight in that 5-minute skirmish than any part of the game.
That really set the trend for the day. There was a lot of that the rest of the games, planting flags. I saw at least like 4 or 5 rivalry games where that happened.
Well, I mean, you look at what Baker Mayfield did that one time when he took the OU flag and planted it in the middle of Ohio State.
Yeah. So yeah, there was some fun games this past weekend. I don't know. It's one of those things where Michigan just has their number. I thought with Harbaugh being gone, that would change, but they just, I don't know. They wet the bed. Ohio State.
Yeah.
10 points. That's just pitiful.
And now he's 1-4 in his lifetime against the Michigan. Do you think that if he doesn't do well in this playoff game, do you think that Ryan Day could possibly lose his job?
I don't think he'll lose his job, but next year will be super hot seat for him.
I don't think they should fire him. I mean, he's done a really good job, and I don't know. But, yeah, you got to be able to beat your rivals.
Yeah. Yeah, losing that one – Michigan is the season for them. So, yeah, that's if you're going to lose any game, you don't want to lose that one.
No. Lose against Northwestern. Number 7, a team near and dear to your heart.
Oh, yeah.
Tennessee.
That's right.
Tell me how you feeling right now.
I feel pretty good. I would feel better if we had a home game instead of going to Ohio State, which is what the projection is right now. That would be awfully tough. But just being in the playoffs is fantastic. 2 weeks ago, I didn't even think we'd be in the playoffs, but then all the craziness happened. I'm trying to think of who all lost now. Alabama obviously losing. That kind of opened the door. I'm trying to think of another game that kind of let us in. Miami, that helped us out.
I was going to say Miami losing.
So, yeah, it's great.
Indiana losing, which is actually the 9th seeded team right now. So, I
don't think Tennessee's capable of making a run, but, they could scare somebody in that first round game. If it's Ohio State or probably Penn State, one of those two teams.
I was going to say Penn State will probably drop down if Oregon actually handles what we think is going to happen. So,
I feel good about that. SEC team or SEC right now with what projected 4 teams getting in if Bama does jump in. So, yeah, that's not bad.
Number 9, Indiana, who was a team that was actually a pleasant surprise as well. Usually, you see them more of as a basketball school, kind of like Duke or UNC and everything like that. But yeah, no, they are really legit this year, and they have a good offense, got a good defense, but just couldn't close the book on Ohio State.
Right, and that's basically the only team they played, so they don't have much of a resume, other than a few wins like Nebraska. Nothing special, but yeah, they're another team like Oregon that's just really balanced. Offense, defense, they're strong on both sides. They don't have the playmakers that Oregon has, but they're a solid team. Right now I think they have them matched up against Georgia in the first round, which that would not go well.
No, it wouldn't.
So, yeah, I congratulate them on a fine season, but I don't think they're going to make it very far.
No, they won't. And number 11, my Alabama Crimson Tide, the only 3-loss team in the college football playoffs committee that was selected. And I got some spicy quotes from Mr. Mario Cristobal. And he argued that, as far as the Hurricanes go, he won 10 games and the losses came down to 1 possession, which most games do. That is very different from the 9-3 teams. But also, like you said, close losses were against Georgia Tech and Syracuse. And, it's just one of those things where, like, you're crying me a river.
Yeah, it's simple for me. If you gave Miami Alabama's schedule, what would the record be? And then vice versa, if you gave Alabama Miami's schedule, what would their record be? So it's just pretty simple for me. 2 losses, 3 losses. It's, you're just haggling at that point because Alabama had a much tougher schedule. They beat Georgia. They beat LSU. I'm trying to think of their other huge win they had. Help me out here, Med.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. They did beat Ole Miss, didn't they?
Yep.
So, that's better than any win Miami has.
South Carolina. Even though South Carolina should have won that game.
South Carolina. My God.
But any team that is in the SEC typically plays a tough schedule. So,
yeah. So, I don't like Alabama being a Tennessee fan, but
the feelings
they deserve to be in over Miami. So, I think it is what it is. If they were to say South Carolina should be in or Ole Miss should be in, I can maybe see.
Way too.
Yeah, I can maybe see an argument there, but not Miami.
Yeah, no, and although I have become a big Cameron Ward fan over the season, I loved him when he was over at Washington State. Not many people really knew him until he came over to Miami. Got that big spotlight put on him and everything like that. One of the things that Alabama head coach DeBoer said was that we're one of the 12 best teams in the nation right now, and that's the way they see it, and he's correct.
Yeah, well, if I was Cristobal, I would have more of a beef with Indiana than Alabama. I know Indiana only has one loss, but they haven't played or beat anybody. They lost to the one team that they played, Ohio State. So, I mean, to me, I would drop Indiana out and put Miami in there if I just had my choice.
I was actually about to ask you, and of course, number 12 is a team that we haven't really discussed yet because, like you said, Iowa State's playing them, but Arizona State got the last seed.
Yeah, they've had a great year. I mean, they've kind of been just under the radar all year, because they haven't done anything in several years, and they play out, where we don't see them much.
I was going to say we don't see them hardly anything.
They play a lot of 10 o'clock, 10:30 games, but they've had a fantastic season.
Yeah, we're in our 40s. We're asleep by then.
Yeah, I can't stay up that late.
Fuck that.
But yeah, I mean, I think they're another team. No matter who they match up against, whether it be Penn State or whoever the first round, I think they'll be, one and done. So,
and once we will be discussing some of the conference championships. Unless you want to do it now, we can just go straight college and just go right into the NFL. All right, well, shit, here we go. So the 5 that are actually going to impact the college football playoffs. We just kind of discussed one a little bit. Iowa State at Arizona State. Arizona State is favored by 2. It's going to be on ABC at 12 p.m. It is the Big 12 championship, which I think it would probably get a little more attention if Colorado was in it. But
that would have been nice.
It is what it is. How are you feeling on this?
I like Arizona State. I mean, they took care of BYU, who I know BYU lost a couple games down the stretch, but they're still a pretty good team. They just, I don't know, they found a way to win all year except for Texas Tech. I don't know. I like their offense is somewhat explosive. I haven't watched either team a lot, but Iowa State usually plays that more like plotting type of offense, and I don't know. I'm just going with the hot team, Arizona State.
I mean, they are the hot team, and like you said, they're the Iowa State Cyclones. They are a very plotty team. I'm sitting here looking at their stats right now. They are, ranked. Well, they have the 44th scoring offense in the league, and they also have a pretty decent defense. But I still agree with you. Arizona State is the hot team right now, and they feature a pretty good offense. So I'm going to go with you with Arizona State. They're going to cover that with no problem. Also on ABC at 12 p.m. we have
early games.
Yeah. Well, I might have miswrote this. Maybe I didn't, but I want to say it's at 3:30. The Southeastern Conference Championship.
That would make more sense.
So
yeah, 3:30 is probably when it kicks off.
Yeah. So sorry, folks. So number 5,
got a rematch
against Texas. Texas is actually favored, even though they got beat down. They're favored by 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, I see why they're favored. Georgia, they've been a little bit streaky this year. They did play their best game against Texas in that game. I think that was just a game where Georgia had gotten tired of hearing about how they weren't the best team anymore, and they just laid smackdown on them. But I think Georgia's had a lot of injuries, some that just kind of have just been nagging injuries, not like season ending, but like ETN's been dealing with stuff the last month or so. A couple of their best offensive linemen have been out a lot. Texas has just been a healthier team. And I do think it's hard to beat a really good team twice in 1 year. And Texas is a really good team. Nothing against Georgia, but I think Texas in this one will squeak it out. I think it'll be a close game. But yeah, it's just going to be tough to beat them twice.
And you're right. I mean, you look at Texas, they got Ewers, they got Isaiah Bond. They really haven't had really any significant injuries this year.
Well, the running backs at the beginning of the season, but their other guys
now.
The 3 and 4 running backs are playing really good. Blue, and I think it's like Whitmer. They're both playing really good. So,
and Georgia, I mean, the one thing about Georgia that I've always noticed, especially with Carson Beck at quarterback, is that they always have that slow burn where they tend to pot around, in fact, this is what spelt the end for them against Alabama, is that, they only scored 6 points in the first half, which, against Alabama, you kind of expect, but also at the same time, you put yourself in a 24-point hole.
Right.
And that seems to be what Georgia does. And it's like in the second quarter or the second half, they're like, oh, you have a game.
Yeah,
you know?
it's almost like they're trying to be dramatic. I mean, down 17-0 against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, they're just trying to make it look good.
You know, I mean, nobody thought Tech had a chance in that game, and it goes 8 overtimes.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, I just think Texas has probably learned a little bit from playing them the other time. You know, like they're going to change some stuff up. Sarkisian is a great play caller, so he's going to. I know Georgia doesn't really have many weaknesses on defense, but he's going to scheme it up, and they're going to. You know, they're going to play better offense than they did the first time.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. Real quick, good evening, JB. Hope everything that is great down there in Florida.
Oh, I would like to be there right now, but it's warmer.
Yeah, a lot warmer than up here.
What part of Florida is it?
I have no idea, but he is a huge Orioles fan and a Miami Dolphins fan. Dude is really big on his history.
That's interesting. So, Orioles and Dolphins.
He covers it all, baby. So next game also on ABC. No, this is on CBS. Sorry. CBS, Penn State in Oregon. So Oregon is favored by 3.5, which I think is a little bit of a slap in the face for this particular game. But, you know, I could be wrong. What's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think it'll be a good matchup, but I just don't trust James Franklin in these big games. Mm-hmm. I like Penn State, but I don't think they have the top tier talent that teams like Oregon and Ohio State have. Mm-hmm. You just don't see the game breakers out there. They're always solid on defense, and I like Drew Aller, the quarterback. I think he's a real blue collar type guy, kind of like Jackson Dart.
He's from Jersey. My bad.
Wow.
Hey, it's a lot colder up there. You should come down here, South Carolina.
Yeah, I think Penn State just is a little bit outmanned here, and I don't think it'll be a blowout or anything. But Oregon, you know, with Gabriel, James, the running back, it's just they're just so balanced and so strong. Yeah, I'd definitely like Oregon in this one.
Yeah, and I'm not completely sold on Elier. I mean, I know he had a better year this year than he did last year, but I just don't think he's quite there.
No, he's not an elite passer.
He's not Dylan Gabriel.
No, he's not. But he is a tough quarterback. He can run. You know, I think if they get a couple turnovers, Penn State can make it interesting. But that's what it would take for them to win this game.
So going with Oregon?
Oh, yeah. Oregon. Yeah. Definitely.
Is it going to be a landslide?
No, I think it'll be like a touchdown type game.
Touchdown type thing. All right. I could go with that too. They're going to cover. And in fact, in all these games, I'll safe to bet they're going to cover all of them. Next thing up is ABC. This is probably the 8 o'clock game on ABC. And it is Clemson at SMU. And I'll be honest straight out, I hope SMU wins this game.
Why didn't they say the SEC title game for the primetime game? That's what I'm wondering.
Because, you know, ACC is a better conference, right?
I just never have understood that, why the ACC game gets the primetime spot. I mean,
they must think that Trevor Lawrence is still there.
Trevor Lawrence isn't conscious right now. He doesn't know where he is right now. But
I'm Batman.
Yes, SMU and Clemson just doesn't have much juice to me. But, you know, it'll still be watchable, I guess. But, you know, Clemson basically has nothing to lose at this point. They aren't even supposed to be in this position. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Clemson, even though, you know, my daughter goes to South Carolina, so it's hard for me to do that. But I think Clemson has more talent. SMU's had a great year, but I think the talent will outweigh SMU's momentum they've had.
Mm-hmm. So. Man, you really put me in a tough spot. You made a very convincing argument right there. Well, I'm just thinking of all the all-in stickers I'm going to be seeing for the next week now.
It's going to be tough accepting Clemson in the playoffs after losing to South Carolina, you know, and just getting dominated by Georgia to open the season, getting beat down by Louisville. I mean, they really don't deserve to be here, but I just think they have enough talent to get it done against SMU.
I'm just going to go with the Mustangs.
I mean, I don't blame you.
I
think it's kind of a toss-up. I'm not like totally convinced Clemson's going to win it, but I just think they're more talented.
Yeah. So, next one up is the MCW, and this is probably going to be the only time where we really sit here and focus on it. But Boise State against number 20 UNLV, which earlier this season had some issues with quarterback quitting in the middle of the season. But biggest point spread out of every championship game. Negative. Boise State is getting 4 points on this.
Oh, that's all.
Yeah. So I mean, I was actually really surprised about this with the offensive output. But once again, that defense is not the best. And how you feeling?
Yeah, I can't go against AJ. He's just been phenomenal. Outside of Travis Hunter, this guy would be the shoe-in, I think, for the Heisman. But UNLV, credit to them after losing your quarterback, all that adversity to still have that good of a season. That's just a great job. I'm not even sure their coach is, but phenomenal job. I just think Boise State is just a little too talented offensively. So I see it more like a 10-point game.
No,
I would definitely take the 4 points.
Yeah, no, if Sleeper actually did do those type of bets, I'd definitely be all over that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see any way that UNLV is going to win this game.
So now we're going to transfer over into the NFL, which we're both more comfortable really with that.
Let's do it.
Okay. So the first thing that's coming up is we got the NFL playoff picture. We can do, you want AFC first or NFC?
Let's do AFC.
All right, let's go. So right now, if you look at the playoff picture, number 1, of course, is Chiefs. Number 2 would be the Bills. Number 3, Steelers. Number 4, Texans. Number 5, the Chargers. Number 7, the Ravens. And number 7 right now is the Broncos, which will probably be discussed in a little bit when we start talking about surprises and disappointments. In the hunt right now, you got the Colts, and barely hanging on there right now is the Dolphins.
Yeah, barely. That's the key word.
So
them and the Colts, they have such a small chance of getting in, but I guess mathematically they're still in there.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of shocking. When we started the season, we talked about how good the AFC North was going to be and how the only team coming out of the AFC West was going to be the Chiefs.
It's the exact opposite.
Here we are. The West has 3 teams in great position, and the North has 1. So, yeah, it's crazy, NFL, how you never know what you're going to get. We have 2?
Yeah, the Ravens.
I'm sorry, not the North. Wait, what are the Bills in?
The
East. Sorry. My bad.
It's all right. I was talking about something else earlier.
AFC East. Yeah, I really thought the AFC East, you're going to get the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills all in the playoffs this year going in. And it just fell apart.
Well, the Dolphins injuries.
I mean, the Tua thing just really sunk them. Right now, they would probably be in good position if it wasn't for that. But the Jets just totally, just fell apart, and Rodgers just hasn't given them a chance.
Yeah. No.
The coaching staff was a mess. All the turmoil with the coaching changes. It's just been an absolute disaster for them.
Well, and at the beginning of the year, we had our predictions and everything, and pretty much they stayed pretty solid. I mean, we both figured the Chiefs. I mean, everyone figured the Chiefs, but the Chiefs just seem like they are the team that have the horseshoe up their butt, where they just do just enough to really win the games. And you can build a culture doing that, but also at the same time, it can always bite you. And it did against the Buffalo Bills. That's where their one loss is. And, the Bills, kudos to Josh Allen, who is potentially going to be an MVP this year, because I know a lot of people are saying Lamar Jackson right now. And
I go Barkley.
Yeah, Barkley has just been killing it. But we both went with McCaffrey last year, and let's be real, the MVP award is now quarterback's award.
Yeah.
So that's why I say Josh Allen. Jared Goff is actually in it too, and this was after he threw 5 interceptions to the Texans. So, it's a crazy world. But the Texans, who I figured would be a little bit higher than what they are with the 4th seed, They just, I know that injuries also played a little bit on them, but right now they just feel like last year's Philadelphia Eagles, where they're kind of like planed off a little bit.
Yeah.
They're kind of falling flat.
Yeah,
right
it just doesn't seem like they're hitting on all cylinders. Stroud's had a little bit of a sophomore slump. I mean, yardage wise, he's still throwing for a lot of yards, but I think it's like 15 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. So when it comes to those 2 departments, he's way off from last year. So it's just like well, you mentioned the injuries. Collins being out for a long time. Diggs going down for the year. Tank Dell was out for a little while.
Joe Mixon missed a couple games.
Yeah, it hasn't helped with the chemistry. But, yeah, they just haven't been what we thought they were going to be. But, maybe they'll bounce back next year.
And one team that has been exactly the opposite of what we thought they would be are the Broncos, which, with Bo Nix, I mean, surprise, surprise, 17 touchdowns. He leads all rookies right now in touchdown passes.
Bo Nix is a guy that I thought had the lowest ceiling of any of those quarterbacks drafted in the first round. I thought they pretty much picked him because he was the only real quarterback left, at that point.
Yeah.
So it's been amazing what this guy's done. I mean, he's a smart kid, coach's son. I just thought at Oregon he was more of a system quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And he's coming here and he looks like a more mobile Drew Brees playing over there for
Yeah.
Peyton. It's just, I don't know, remarkable. And their defense is playing well. Sutton's playing really well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just credit to Peyton. I've always thought he was a fantastic coach. It's just when he had Russell Wilson, he couldn't do much. They just didn't work with Russell Wilson.
I just think it was the scheme. And speaking of Russell Wilson, right now, his Steelers, I use that term loosely, Mike Tomlin Steelers, but Russell Wilson is the man that took over even after Justin Fields went 4-2. And now they're like, why are you making the quarterback switch? Well, the main reason why is me being a Bears fan. I could tell you Justin Fields ain't much of a passer.
Right.
And at least Russell Wilson gives him that extra edge.
Gives him better balance.
Much better balance. I mean, he's averaging a career high 271 yards per game right now.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to have a little bit more identity other than kicking field goals after they've run about 6,000 times. What do you feel as far as the Steelers? Is this a team that could potentially challenge for the AFC title?
Man, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was said there's no way, but they've looked really, really good lately.
Yeah.
And Russell had that 400+ passing yard game the other day.
Over the Bengals.
What do you have, like 4 touchdowns?
I mean, it is the Bengals defense, but still at the same time.
Yeah.
Still impressive. It's the NFL.
It's just with this defense, like those Raven teams that were so dominant, back in the day when the offense was just okay.
Yeah.
I think the Steeler offense is more than okay. And with that defense, I think it gives them a chance every single week, especially when you get into these bad weather games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think they have a real shot. I mean, I would take them right now over the Ravens personally.
No, and I personally do too.
Yeah.
I mean, last week with the Ravens-Eagles game, a lot of people felt like, the Ravens were going to kind of trounce the Eagles because the Eagles at that point, they didn't really have too many hard games. And, of course, the Ravens with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson and everything, it was the exact opposite. And I think at the same time we saw as a collective whole, as the nation watched that game, that Justin Tucker, the GOAT kicker of all time, is struggling now.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's lost it, man.
He's missed 10 field goals this year so far. I mean, he missed 2 in that game and an extra point. And it really made up the difference of that game. The Ravens, do you think that they could possibly regroup? Do they need to go find another kicker? Or?
I think it's more than that. I think their defense is just too pedestrian. It's just they've gone
a lot over the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, it shows. I mean, they've gone from being a top 5 defense to like what is it? Are they even in the top 20 anymore? Last time I looked, they were like hovering around the 20 spot on total defense. But yeah, it's just not. It's not going to work in the playoffs for them with this defense playing this way, unless something just drastically changes. The Eagles, they're a lot like the Steelers. A really super physical team with a good running game, a quarterback that isn't a phenomenal passer, but he's an efficient passer, and they just punched the Ravens in the face. They just out physicaled them.
23rd.
Wow.
23rd. Now they're good against the run, but they're horrible against the pass at 31st.
Yeah, I mean they held Barkley somewhat in check, but it wasn't nearly enough as we saw.
No, and Barkley had that one good play at the very end. I mean, thank God I have him in my other fantasy league. And looking at that, I mean, we talked a little bit about it with Geno Stone leaving the Ravens, went to the Bengals. Patrick Queen going to the Steelers. They lost a lot of leadership, I think is the big problem.
Yeah.
And especially on their defense. I mean, Roquan Smith, love him to death. I wish we still had him. But, with that system and everything, I'm really surprised that the Ravens, with who they brought in and everything like that, I expected Derrick Henry to explode like he did. I did not expect the Bills to do what they've done.
No, I didn't either. I mean, we talked about that before the season.
Yeah.
It's been really surprising. After losing, kind of like the Ravens, they lost a lot of leadership on that defense.
And then you look at what they did on offense, and then the midseason trade for Amari Cooper just elevated Josh Allen's game just that much more. And, he had a couple other good receivers, not named Keon Coleman, but, I mean.
Yeah, it's all been on Josh Allen's back. I mean, their defense has been solid, but yeah, it's all just a credit to how good he is that they're where they are.
So
yeah, jump over the NFC.
All right. So NFC, it's a little bit more muddled at the bottom, but right now we're looking at number 1 being the Lions, number 2 the Eagles, number 3 Seahawks. Believe it or not, and believe it or not, your Falcons are the 4th seed right now. That's kind of iffy right now
What a
because when I
disgrace.
start talking about everything else, you'll see why. Same thing with the Seahawks. It's illusion. You got number 5 the Vikings, 10-2 Vikings, behind the 7-5 Seahawks and the 6-6 Falcons.
That makes sense.
The 9-3 Packers and an 8-5 Commanders. And then in the hunt, you ready for this?
Who we got?
We had the 6-6 Buccaneers. We got the 4-8 Saints. We got the 6-6 Cardinals, the 5-7 49ers. Basically, the whole NFC West is involved in this stuff.
Rams are in there too, right?
All of them. The whole division.
Yeah, the AFC is so much clearer on the playoff picture.
It's like diarrhea at the very bottom. It's just everywhere.
Very top-heavy conference over here.
So should we work through the muddle that is, I guess we could start off with talking about the West because it's just so much going on over there. We'll start saying that Seahawks right now, I'm not really sold on them yet. I know that you love Geno Smith.
Love's a strong word.
I think you tolerate Geno Smith. And of course, with the win that they just recently had, Leonard Williams, congratulations on being the first 300-pounder to run that ball all the way back and set a record. But he was sucking in that oxygen afterwards too. But they will be taking on, I believe they're taking on the Cardinals this weekend. So it's going to be a division battle for the lead in that division. The 49ers, no one's IR death chart is as deep as the 49ers right now. I think they got 12 people on there.
I feel like they're done.
Yeah. It sucks to say that.
Yeah. When you lose McCaffrey and then Mason goes down too, and you already had Ayuk out for the season, it's just like only so much you can do. I mean, you can't just keep rolling, second and third teamers out there and maintain
and hope
level of play.
So. And then you got the Rams. So which also had their issues at the beginning of the year with Puka going down in the
I think the Rams are another team that just had so many injuries there for a while that they kind of, like the Dolphins, just couldn't overcome them. But now that they have their weapons back, they've been playing pretty well. I like the Rams out of that group of the Cardinals, Seahawks, and Rams. I think I like the Rams the best.
Do you think the Rams are going to come back out? Take it from the Seahawks?
I guess it'd be a shocker. I don't know. It'd be a shocker at this point.
No, they're only one game back. And there's 5 games to go.
I don't trust Seattle's defense. I know the Rams defense isn't great, but
I don't trust Geno Smith.
Yeah, Geno Smith is just he's been another one that's putting up yardage, kind of like Stroud, but you look at the touchdown to interception ratio, not good.
No.
And I don't know, the Cardinals, just with Murray, he's just always so inconsistent.
It's tricky.
Just the last couple games, he's had 3 interceptions after they won like 3 or 4 in a row. So I don't know. I think I trust Rams with Stafford and Puka and Kupp, Kyron Williams. It's just
they're focused.
I think now that they're healthy, I think they're going to win that division.
Well, and like you just said, Kyler Murray has been throwing some interceptions and everything lately. Let's be real. Call of Duty just came out not too long ago. So he's probably sitting there just playing up on that instead of reading his playbook.
I don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. has lived up to expectations. So they still don't have a clear number 1 wide receiver. McBride has been great at tight end, and Connor's still been pretty solid at running back. But you look at the weapons compared to the Rams, I would take the Rams any day.
Oh, definitely. Especially on offense and defense. I love the Rams defense. They're young and they're scrappy.
Yeah.
So, but no love for the 49ers. And like you said, the Cardinals are kind of just there. The Falcons. Your team.
Been terrible the last couple weeks, 3 weeks.
Man, Kirk was on fire for the other team last week.
Yeah. Well, the opposite has happened. Now they're talking about benching the guy. So it's just.
Do you like that though?
No, I know it's not going to happen, but it's just kind of going off the rails with him. He made some horrible interceptions last week. Just basically gave them no chance, and they should have won that game. They gave that game away. Fortunately for them, the division is just so bad that they're still somehow in the lead. You know, the Bucks, I think they just had tons of injuries, and that helped the Falcons out. Otherwise, I think the Bucks would clearly be in first in this division.
And like you just said, with the division so bad, I mean, you got 4-8 Saints in line. The Panthers are not mathematically eliminated yet. If that says something, they're 3-9. So
wow. That's a great year for the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, they tripled their win total from last year.
Yeah,
I mean, congratulations, getting shit done down there.
Hey, I mean, credit to Bryce Young. I mean, I think he's bounced back a little bit.
I think he has quite a bit, actually. Yeah. And in fact, when we come back with the surprises and stuff like that, you might see not him, but a Panther on there.
Ooh.
So let's talk about, okay, so you actually called this. The NFC North has 3 representatives right now looking, and the Bears also are not mathematically eliminated, but I'm just going to go ahead and be a Bears fan and say, hey, look, we're eliminated. You know, we're going to be having a decent draft pick next year, hopefully a lineman. So Lions at 1, Vikings right behind them, 10-2, Packers 9-3. You called it earlier. You said that this would be the best division in NFL this year. It has proved that.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, clearly we didn't expect the Vikings to be what they've been, but going into the season, I thought you had a real chance at 3 playoff teams, and you still do. I just thought the Bears would be that 3rd team and not the Vikings. But the Packers, you know, the Lions have just been phenomenal. You know, I think both those teams, and we'll see it tonight in about 15 minutes. Both those teams are just so freaking deep, with just loaded with young talent. I mean, I think the Lions have a little bit more top end talent, you know, like a little higher ceiling. But the Packers, I mean, this is what they've done the last couple of weeks. You know, Jordan Love is playing more under control, not being a gunslinger, being more efficient, and they're just leaning on Jacobs. You know, the defense is improving slowly. So, I mean, I know Isaac would love to hear that. His Packers are looking really, really good.
He's shoving hard.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, I even picked the Packers to win this week.
Today. Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Lions.
Yeah, it just feels like they're getting beat up right now.
Yeah, they've had some injuries. I mean, obviously losing Hutch, that was a huge one, and they've still played really well on that side of the ball. But they've been showing a couple flaws in the defense the last couple of weeks. And you know, if you can shut down the run against the Lions, you have a chance. But it's just they run so well most of the time. You know, between Gibbs and obviously your boy Montgomery.
Yeah. Why couldn't he run like that in Chicago?
Who looks like a different player than we played in Chicago.
Yeah. Being better line. I mean, they actually invested in their offensive line, unlike we do. But also at the same time, the one thing that really scares me at the Lions, let's be real, is the only reason why they won that game is because Matt Eberflus has an inability to call timeouts. So,
yeah, clearly. And it cost him his job. So.
Yeah, about time. I mean, we'll see what happens as we go on to that. And, you know, we talked a little bit about Jaden Daniels and what he was able to do so far with the Commanders. That team has been kind of surprising. It's really good to see that a long-suffering franchise such as the Washington Commanders, after the Daniel Snyder era, is actually able to see a light at the tunnel. And they're like, okay, you know, they haven't touched the playoffs, I don't think, since Kirk Cousins.
Man, yeah, that's been a while. I definitely didn't think they would be there this quickly. You know, I thought you'd be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't think they would kick the freaking door in this quick. But yeah, they have been great. You know, they've had a couple of games that they kind of choked away, but they're still right there in a good spot for the playoffs. And the way Jaden Daniels has played, you know, it's hard to think of a guy that should get Rookie of the Year over him. You know, it's just been
the only other person I could think of is Bo Nix.
Yeah,
at this point,
I think Jaden Daniels has been a little more consistent. Bo Nix has been great lately, but Daniels has been great all year.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, but so now we're going to be going to go ahead and take a swig at that fine beverage right there, sir.
Parched.
I was going to say you've been talking a lot. So this was actually your idea. The next thing we're going to be talking about, this is going to be surprises and disappointments. He went with teams. I went with actual players. It was just lost in the thing.
Yeah, we'll go with players. Yeah,
no, we can do teams too.
Right.
I mean, because I'm pretty sure some of the players Well, not some of the players, because there's some surprise players on some crappy teams on my paper. So,
Okay.
what do you want to do first? You want to do disappointments, or you want to go?
Let's go disappointments.
Okay. First one up for me, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you can't really start off on anything that is disappointment other than Aaron Rodgers. I mean, his touchdown to interception ratio is not that bad. I mean, you look at what Tom Brady did in his last year. He threw 25 touchdowns and had like 10 interceptions. So the only reason why he probably did not get child out like Aaron Rodgers has is, well, they went to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And this team is absolutely horrible. There are two Jets on my disappointment list from what I've been watching. And, 48.2 QBR. I believe that the average QBR for an average quarterback is 60. So he's below average already. Only 1,918 yards on 62.5. This is by far his worst year, but it kind of has to become expected when you're almost 42 years old, coming off an Achilles injury. Kirk Cousins can be thrown in this category too, but I did not include him because Kirk Cousins has had more of a
up and down
area where this one, he went rock bottom right from the get-go. So Aaron Rodgers is my number one right now.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame because I think that Jets team has a lot of talent, but yeah, I totally agree. Aaron Rodgers has just been really bad. I don't want to say it's been like dropped off a cliff, like Matt Ryan did towards the end with the Colts, but it's just been a mess, and there's no other way around it. I mean, I think Tom Brady has proven that he's the only guy that can somehow maintain that level of play over 40 years old. Otherwise you just lose it.
Peyton Manning wasn't even able to do it. And,
right.
I mean, must be the avocado ice cream.
Maybe. I don't know what the key is. I mean, the guy announcing still looks like he's under 40 years old.
I was going to say, I heard about his shirtless pic the other day.
Yeah, I did hear about that. Yeah. So do you want to jump to a team now, or
you can go team?
I mean,
we'll just go back and forth.
Yeah. Since we're talking about Aaron Rodgers, let's go with the Jets. I mean, I think everybody had them kind of plugged in the playoffs going into the season. And you look at the players, whether it be Breece Hall, Wilson at wide receiver, they brought in Devontae Adams. Defense was supposed to be legit. We've seen all the great picks they made on the defensive side, Sauce Gardner, and it seems like, it just seems like between Rodgers' play and the coaching, just malpractice, it has imploded, and it's just been a complete mess. That's all there is to it. Nobody sugarcoat it.
Yeah. And I mean, when you fire your coach midway through the season, not even midway through the season.
Yeah.
I mean, that says a lot right there. And, that goes all the way to the top. Not only was the coach fired, the GM was fired as well. And, of course, there's a whole lot of scandal and everything like that. A lot of people were pointing fingers at Aaron Rodgers saying, hey, you're the reason why they got fired. And he's like, no, I had nothing to do with it. But he also met with the owner the day before. So coincidence, possibly. But it's definitely one of those things where you sit there and you read about what's going up there in New York. The media is like piranhas up there. You throw a piece of meat out in the river, they're going to attack it. And they see the guy struggling. I was watching the take when he, was on the sideline after he threw the interception. He's sitting there and you would thought that he's ready to go into his dark room and just chill there for 6 months and just cut off from the rest of the world.
I forgot about the dark room thing.
So, well, I've been getting tormented by him for like the last few years.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I've heard him say that he'll come back next year. He'll probably come back. And on the Jets, I'm like, no, thanks.
I'm good.
Whatever they owe him for next year, just go ahead and pay him off.
Go ahead and write that check and walk away. Yeah. So the other Jet that I actually have, and he's lower than the other three players that I've wrote up in here, is actually Garrett Wilson. And, when you look at his catches, he's actually 7th.
Yeah.
Like he has 74 catches. He's doing really well, but he also has 118 targets, which ties him for 2nd. So when you see that much of a differential between the two, it's just unreal. And his catches per average, you care to put a number on this. Out of
Like-
all the receivers in the league,
6 yards a catch. I don't know what.
it's 10 yards,
10?
3. But where do you think his ranking would be?
Pretty low.
99.
Wow.
He is the 99th ranked player per catch. There
Wow.
are running backs who have a higher average than he does right now.
See,
And
I put that more on the quarterback, though. I think Wilson's still a really good player. It's just, look who's throwing him the ball. But I mean, I get what you're saying, but you could also throw Brees Hall in there, too. He's been really disappointing if you just talk about
oh man, you could
expectations.
just go on into the whole
Right.
pretty much. Devontae Adams has
Yeah.
been a disappointment since he went there.
Yeah. So it's just that whole offense in general. But yeah. So jump back to another disappointing team. I'm gonna go with the Cowboys.
Mm.
Another team that everybody had as a certain playoff team. Obviously they usually choke in the playoffs, but they at least get there. And this year it just started out rough. You saw the cracks in the foundation when the Saints just beat them down at home in week 2, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't really got any better. I mean, Prescott obviously went down for the season. I think Lamb has been disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a few big games, but nothing consistent. And, letting Pollard go, even though Pollard wasn't phenomenal last year, it still was a big mistake because they haven't done anything to replace him. I mean, it's just been a lot of bad personnel decisions, and I put that on Jerry Jones. And, it seems like they're another team, much like the 49ers, that's kind of missed their window. I mean, Prescott, he's not young anymore. And, Lamb, they just gave him a huge contract. Michael Parsons will be due for one next year. So I don't know where they go from here, but they've been extremely disappointing this year.
Yeah, no, I kind of saw this coming. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm like Gandhi or freaking Nostradamus or something like that, but I saw this coming over in the offseason when they didn't do anything. They already were talking about the fact that, they needed to re-sign Dak Prescott, and they did. He's now the richest guy ever in the NFL. You brought up the big contract with the CeeDee Lamb, but they have a young offensive line now. They didn't do anything as far as they brought back Zeke, which, that's Zeke, not
barely played.
Yeah, he's, fullback Zeke now.
I really don't think they played any worse. They may have played better with Cooper Rush the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy.
Well, I mean, the one thing with Dak is he likes to give the ball to the other team sometimes. And I mean, not sometimes, he does it all the time. And I think that really and truthfully, they just never got over the loss that they had against the Packers.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that.
So,
yeah, it's just been, and Parsons had the injury early in the season. The defense just isn't what it was, under Quinn the last couple of years. So it's just it's kind of frustrating. I mean, obviously for your Cowboys fan, you're extremely frustrated, but it's like, where do you go from here? Do you hope that somehow magically Dak regains, that stellar play that we saw a couple of years ago? Because I don't see it.
I just don't see it either. And this is also on Jerry Jones, because he seems to always be someone that really tries to ride out with somebody into the very end. I remember, when he had Garrett Wilson as his, coach, and he basically for like 4 straight seasons of 8-8, you're not getting better, you're not getting worse, you're just there. And
it's the worst place to be in the NFL is just be stuck in the middle. But now they're not even stuck in the middle; they're stuck in the bottom.
Yeah, well, at least this way they'll actually get a high enough draft pick. I mean, the last time they drafted really low was when they got Zeke when he was good. Yeah, and he got him with a 4th round pick.
I wish we had a Cowboys fan that would chime in on this, because I don't know any Cowboys fans personally, but I
know a ton.
I don't know. It's like one of those things where you almost want them to pull the plug like the Giants did with Daniel Jones. I mean, I know that's not going to happen, but it just seems like a reset is needed.
Oh, no, they need to blow it up. That team, all in all, I mean, you look at Micah Parsons. They do have a kid that I have it in one of my notes over there. Let me grab it.
In the trash can?
It's in the trash can. DeMarvin Overshawn. He's actually doing really well this year. He looks like he's going to be the Robin to Micah Parsons' Batman.
Yep.
So, that's really what Micah Parsons needs on that side. They also need to be able to stop the run. I mean, when Van Der Esch had to retire due to injuries and stuff, that really hurt him a lot.
Yeah, their linebacker core is nothing special at all.
No.
I don't know. I guess we got to move on. But, yeah, the Cowboys are in trouble.
Yeah. Next player for me, Travis Etienne.
Good call.
So this is a guy that is to previous 2 seasons had over 1,400 yards per season combined with rushing and passing, or not rushing and passing, but receiving and rushing. And this year he is sitting at 371 yards.
Man, that seems impossible.
2 touchdowns in 10 games. And last season he was voted 8th as the Offensive Player of the Year award.
Jeez.
So you talking about a fall off. I'm pretty sure that disappointment will be one of your teams is the Jags, but Travis Etienne is definitely a big reason. I mean, this is one of their first round picks when they drafted Trevor Lawrence and then drafted him a little bit later in that
Clemson teammates.
Yeah.
I mean, you thought it was talk about Batman and Robin. You really thought they were going to have something magical here. And I think this team is just cursed at this point.
Yeah.
We saw what happened to Trevor the other day where he just got knocked into the next week, but
dirty hit.
It's just been so bad for them. It just last year, the way it ended, how they just choked down the stretch, it's almost like it carried over into this year, like with the Cowboys. They just they made a few moves in the off season that didn't really pan out. They did bring in Brian Thomas Jr., who I think has been really good. That was definitely the highlight of their season. But the defense has just been atrocious. Peterson, I don't even know how he still has a job at this point, but it's just Trevor Lawrence hasn't made that jump yet, to where he's a leader, a guy that's going to put you on their back like Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And Etienne, I don't know if it's just kind of a byproduct of how bad the offensive line and Trevor Lawrence has been. But yeah, Etienne just looks like, just a guy they brought in off the streets or something and just plugged in at running back. He doesn't look like, was he a first or second round pick?
He was first pick.
Jeez.
He was a first round pick. And,
Tank Bigsby's look a lot better than him.
I was going to say Tank Bigsby's been doing really well. And then you look at like the defense. I mean, they had these same struggles last year. This isn't something new. I mean, they can't stop anybody from running. People were running through them like shit through a goose. And, you look at what they brought in. They brought in Gabe Davis. They gave him a decent contract, 3 years, $26 million. And it was the worst move that they could have possibly did. You brought in Brian Thomas. Okay, good job. You got Christian Kirk, good receiver. Why are you paying someone $26 million to drop 3 balls a game?
Just a terrible decision. Another team that's just personnel decisions have been horrible. Yeah, I mean, I think I pretty much covered the next team on my list, the Jags. I don't think we really even need to go into that. So I'll just jump to the next team on my list.
Oh, go for it.
That would be the Bengals. The Bengals are a team that you look at their offense and you say, this is probably a Super Bowl contender.
Right.
But then you look at the other side and you're like, good God.
Yeah.
Have they drafted anyone on the defensive side in the last 5 years?
Yeah.
They just don't have, other than Hendrickson, is that his name on the defensive line?
Trey Hendrickson.
Other than him, there's just nobody over there that scares anybody. And, Burrow is playing at a elite, phenomenal level right now.
Like he would be an MVP if this team was doing better.
Yeah. And here you sit at 4-8, I think, right now. It's just insane.
Yeah.
Is that right? 4-8? I think that's what it is.
Oh, they're not even in the playoff hunt.
No.
So, I mean, it's unreal.
I mean, you had an injury to Higgins, but the offense hasn't been a problem at all. They just keep getting in these games where
it's a shootout.
It's a shootout, and they can't stop anybody. So, yeah, the Bengals, man, that I hope they're not wasting Burrow and Chase's prime, because it'd be a shame for them not to get at least one Super Bowl together.
I think they are. I mean, it's just you look at that defense and the fact that they can't stop anyone. I mean, Russell Wilson looked like Joe Montana this past week. And I mean, we're not talking about prime Russell Wilson. We're talking about 32, 33-year-old Russell Wilson.
An Arthur Smith coached offense. They shouldn't be doing that against anybody.
Yeah, no, they look like they're in a run and shoot from back in the Houston Oilers days, and they're just running up the score. It was just unreal to actually see this. And, last year their defense was it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah, it was respectable.
Yeah, and you thought when they brought on Geno Stone, who was, the interceptions leader last year, I believe, in the NFL, you would have thought that it would have transferred over. But ever since they got rid of Jesse Bates, who went to Atlanta, it seems like that defense just went straight into the dumpster. And that's a good call.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame too, because I really like the Bengals and they're fun to watch, but I think you're going to have to let Higgins go and go out and get some defensive talent.
They need to. Yeah, they need to invest some money. You got Jermaine Burton. I mean, he's a pretty decent receiver. I know you hate his guts, but
yeah, I guess he was kind of brought in to kind of fill that void if Higgins does leave.
No, they did it for Boyd. I mean, who went down to Nashville. My next player I have is Zamir White. After last season, towards the end of the year, with basically a couple of these players are on my fantasy team too. That's why I know
trend
Zamir.
Here.
Well, Zamir White definitely is on my team.
Tucker's on your team too, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Well, I don't have him in my disappointments. Only got a few on it, but he's only got 213 yards this year, and he's averaging 3 yards per touch. That's also including his catching ability, which it's not a factor.
No.
This is after he already, like last season, towards the end of the year, he won plenty of people fantasy football championships. That's why he was on my radar in the fantasy football world. But you kind of expect him. He was pretty decent in Georgia, not the world setter, but he was serviceable. And then he was serviceable last year with the Raiders. I don't know what happened. Maybe someone like pissed in his cornflakes. I don't know if he ain't eating his yogurt or saying his prayers or taking his vitamins, but he fell off so bad that he doesn't even look like he's on the team anymore.
God. Yeah, I think he's dealing with a couple of injuries right now, but he might as well not be on the team anymore.
Yeah,
he got beat out by freaking Madison, didn't he?
Yeah.
God,
who was a third stringer in the Vikings last year.
Where is the guy that played down the stretch at the end of last year? He's only 25 years old.
Yeah, Papa Maidal.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to this guy. But yeah, that's a great call. He's just done absolutely nothing this year. I don't know. So my last team on the disappointments, I'm going to go with the team we already talked about, San Francisco 49ers. And this is a team that we both said before the season, we thought they had missed their window. I just didn't think the window would completely shut like this.
It's slammed shut.
Yeah, but, with the McCaffrey thing from the beginning of the season, it was just kind of a jinx season. They just kept having stuff happen. Ayuk going down. Even before he went down, he wasn't playing very well. Debo, like he always is, in and out of the lineup. Kittle's had a few games he missed. Purdy really has been the only consistent thing about this team. And even he's had a couple injuries lately, but Purdy still has played like a top 5, maybe top 8 quarterback this season.
Oh, he's been amazing.
It's just been the defense has slipped a little bit, kind of like the Ravens. You lost some players and you're just not elite on that side anymore. And that's something that both those teams for so long could count on. And nobody's scared of them anymore.
Well, at one point they had 15 people on their IR.
Yeah. That's a huge part of it. But even with those guys, I just don't see them being a legit contender anymore.
It's really an acronym of, I guess you could say, the man curse with McCaffrey, and then you also have the Super Bowl hangover, which they would parlay into as well. In fact, my last disappointing player is Deebo Samuel. And he's statistically having his worst season that he ever in his career so far. Right now he's sitting at 610 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's a lot better than Zamir White.
Yeah. Well, he's looking all pro compared to Zamir White. But like you were talking about, they're unfortunately it's the injury bug, but it's not just that. They've lost some key personnel, and you really want John Lynch, who's their GM, to really get that team over the hump and everything. But when they lost to Marco Ryans, that was one of their big defensive guru that went to the Houston Texans 2 years ago. Stuff like that's going to hurt, and it might not look like it's going to hurt right off the rip, but in time, it's gonna sting a little bit more. It's like basically getting sucker punched in your jaw, and then you don't feel it until 5 hours later. You're like, oh man, what hit me? Well, you losing your probably one of the best young minds on the defensive side of the ball to another team. That's gonna hurt. And even though they got a new defensive coordinator. Can't remember the name of him.
Nick Sorensen.
He's not the same guy.
No.
I mean, you're.
Yeah, it was a drop off for sure. It's another one of those teams like with the Cowboys. Like, where do you go from here? Because Purdy is going to have to get paid pretty soon, and then you got to make other decisions. So,
yeah, you can't just keep throwing monopoly money at players. I mean, I know you want to keep the team together and all that, but
this is a team that's constantly picking at the bottom of every round. So they're not getting those elite players in the draft, but unlike the Chiefs, they aren't finding the diamonds in the rough.
Oh God, the Chiefs. They just, dude, I don't even know how that GM, whoever he is.
I think Lynch is a phenomenal GM.
Oh no, I love Lynch.
The Chiefs guy, which I can't even think of his name right now. I mean, that guy.
I should know his name.
He should be the freaking MVP.
He should be Hall of Famer already. Just go ahead and induct him while he's in there.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk more positive. Let's get a little positive in here. Let's talk about the surprise / comeback players.
Yeah. We'll just stick with players on this one. I know we've run over, but just want to do the players?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
All right.
Let's do it.
So my first one, of course, you can't really talk about comebacks without talking about Sam Darnold, who is 10th in yards right now. Passing for almost 3,000 yards, still has 5 more games to go, so he could possibly hit a 4,000 year mark. Now, his QBR is a little bit lower than what you would think, 56, but I mean, 23 touchdowns to 10 interceptions and almost 70% completion percentage. I mean, he's really bounced back, especially with someone that saw a lot of ghosts when he was in New York.
So, yeah, I mean, that's probably the number one pick on everyone's list when you talk about surprise type players. I mean, this guy has struggled most of his career and just bounced around. So it's really nice to see somebody like this finally have success because, I mean, he was a prospect coming out of USC that most people thought was a can't miss. And, the guy just took him a while.
He missed.
He finally got there.
He missed a lot.
Yeah, so it's great to see this for Darnold. I feel good for him. I guess my next one is going to be Russell Wilson, who we've already talked about.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson had decent numbers in Denver last year, but he just never clicked with that system and Sean Payton. So I think everyone just saw that as a disaster. Whereas this year, the guy is playing under control. He's not making mistakes, and he's given the Steelers, that balance that we talked about. The Steelers just haven't had that the last couple of years, even though their defense is always great. I think Russell does enough to put them in like a Super Bowl contender status.
Yeah. No, without Russell, they could just basically do it the way that they've been doing it the last few years, put 8 in the box, stop the run, and then let your defenses slug it out.
I mean, I still don't think they're great at wide receiver, but Pickens is good enough, that he's going to win a lot of those jump ball type throws, those deep balls that Russell likes to throw.
I wonder if he was related to Carl Pickens.
Ooh, I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
Huh.
I know he can't stop running his mouth, though. It seems like Tomlin's always getting onto him for something.
Quit running your mouth. You got a player? You just did
that was on.
Okay. My next up is actually Tony Pollard. Now, if you have heard me last year, I constantly was shitting on this guy, and including the next guy after him. But right now, he's 10th in the NFL in rushing, 835 yards for a very bad Titans team. 4 touchdowns. Tony Pollard's definitely he's taken. He definitely made me raise an eyebrow and say, okay, well, this dude is really putting it in now. Last year, of course, he had a couple of injuries, and maybe it was just the light. Maybe it was just the offensive line that they had in Dallas. I don't know, but he definitely has picked up his game on a team that you would not expect him to be able to do it.
No, I mean, he's been one of the few bright spots on that team. Levis hasn't really grown like everybody thought he would, but Pollard has come in and given them. He's a really good, receiving threat, good balanced player, kind of like Eckler was, for a couple of years there. But yeah, that's a good call. Pollard's been solid, especially if you have him in fantasy, which I don't, but props to those guys that do. I'm going to go with a pretty easy choice here, Saquon Barkley. And I know it's not a huge surprise, but I don't think anyone expected him to play like this. When he was with the Giants, he was really good, but he played for the Giants, so we never saw this kind of play. And some of the plays he's made this year, like that,
The backwards hurdle.
Jump hurdle, it's just phenomenal what he's done. Barkley, I don't really like the Eagles, but he makes me like kind of root for him a little bit, just because I want to see him get a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He's too special of a player. I think right now he has like 1,500 yards, 11 touchdowns, averaging over 6 yards a carry. Just insane type year. I still think he's probably the MVP. He might not get it because it's a quarterback-driven award, but I would give him my vote if I had one.
No, I definitely would too, and I like that call because what player really needed to get away from their former team like that? I mean, the best thing that ever happened to him is he left New York.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel like that with Trevor Lawrence. I feel like he needs to get away from the Jags.
Yeah. My next player, and I've shit on this guy quite a bit too. Chuba Hubbard.
Oh, yeah, good call.
From Carolina. He is 6th in the NFL. This is a guy, he just recently got a big contract from Carolina. He more than deserves it. 919 yards so far, 4.9 yards a carry. That is huge compared to what he was doing. 7 touchdowns. Unfortunately, this past game, he fumbled the ball at a key situation. Definitely not something you want to see him do. But other than that, he's been a player that has really been able to help Bryce Young develop a little bit more. It seems like that since this guy really took off, Bryce Young has been able to actually improve his game too. They just ain't loading up the box and sending 6 people at Bryce Young and he's dying. But no, Chuba Hubbard is definitely surprised me this year. And sorry, hiccups. And he definitely deserves to be on this list.
Yeah. So my next one, I'm going to go with a guy that's a rookie, but I just didn't expect. This kind of.
You're saying
Who do you think I'm saying?
You're going to say Bo Nix?
No, we already talked about Bo Nix. I mean, he was a 1st-round pick, so it's a surprise, but it's not like totally unforeseen. Okay. I'm going to go with Bruce Irvin, running back for the
Tampa Bay
Bucks. He came in. He's a smallish back. I think most people thought he would just be, the alternate back to Rachaad White, because Rachaad White had a really good year last year.
Oh, yeah.
And he's come in and he's just taken this job. He's been just a great dual threat running back, receiver / obviously he's a good runner, but he's a good outside runner instead of between the tackles. But he's just been a phenomenal job. He's been really good. And I don't know. I just like watching him play. He's exciting. I talked about Eckler, when he was in his prime. This reminds me of him just a little bit, just a shifty back.
Yeah. Actually, Rachaad White was on my disappointment list, and I
thought about putting him too.
Yeah. I took him off because I was like, he's another guy that I have on the fantasy football team.
Yeah, Rachaad White has been pretty disappointing.
Next one up on the surprise list, I got 2 more players. Jerry Jeudy.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one too.
54 catches, 880 yards, 3 touchdowns. Now the touchdowns ain't really huge, but you look about the fact that he was going to Cleveland, and he was going to Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, of course, now is long gone. Hopefully will be etched out of Cleveland history. And he has Jameis Winston throwing on the ball. That's not great. But he's able to actually get 54 catches, 880 yards so far, and 3 touchdowns. Really thought that when Cleveland traded for him and then gave him that big contract, I thought, this is what Cleveland does.
Yeah. I thought it was a bad move at the time.
Yeah, but he's definitely turned it around. He's looking really good this year.
Yeah, I agree with that one totally. Especially lately, since Winston's taken over, he's really caught fire. I mean, I think if Watson would have stayed quarterback, we probably wouldn't be saying this right now.
Yeah,
but Winston's really helped ignite him. I'm going to go with a guy that you have on your team also, but has done a good job, Jonnu Smith.
Oh, yeah.
The guy has been, I think, a solid player for the Titans, but this year he's just clicked with Tua, especially lately.
Yeah.
And he's become one of the best tight ends in the AFC. I mean, I think last week he had like 10 catches or something, 113 yards.
Yeah, that was great.
So, yeah. I mean, I think the week before that he had like 11 targets, 9 receptions. He's just been the go-to guy lately, with Tyreek Hill having kind of a down year. Waddle, for whatever reason, just hasn't been consistent. Jonnu Smith has been that to-go guy for Tua. And, just a guy that it just took him a while, but now I feel like he's he's kind of had like an Evan Ingram type resurgence year,
Yes.
like Evan Ingram last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, props to Johnny Smith. That was a good pickup by you. Did you get him on waivers?
Yeah.
Nice job.
Thank you. My last player, and this is a guy that I'm actually kind of happy to see him doing well. He is a former Bear and became a Falcon in the offseason. We're talking about Darnell Mooney.
Oh, yeah.
51 catches. I mean, he still drops the occasional ball and everything. At least he ain't doing it in the end zone.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that just, yeah. But 731 catches, 5 touchdowns. Anytime it seems like Kirk really is looking to get bailed out on something, he's throwing it to Mooney. And unfortunately, lately, it feels like Kirk is throwing it to everyone on the defense, not Mooney or Drake London. But Darnell Mooney definitely has improved this season from what he was. Now, that could be because he had Justin Fields as quarterback and not Kirk Cousins. But to each its own, Darnell Mooney has definitely upped his game, and he's got a little bit of shine on this one.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, London also in that category, good year with a decent quarterback, even though it hasn't been lately. I think I'm going to go with my last one, even though he's now on the IR, J.K. Dobbins.
Ooh,
J.K., I think it would be a good candidate for comeback player of the year. The injury cut his season short, but he was really solid all year. He's had some games where he had over 100 yards. Just he's not ever going to be, like a Barkley type player, that just pads stats and just, is like all pro or anything. But for that offense with Harbaugh likes to be physical. He likes a power back, and Dobbins is a good fit for that. I think he had I want to say over 700 yards before he went out.
771.
So really great to see him come back. He's had 3 season-ending injuries, I believe, since he joined the league, and it just didn't work out with the Ravens. But it's good to see him have a big year with the Chargers, and hopefully he'll come back next year healthy.
Hopefully. I mean, unfortunately, when you have that many injuries this later on in the year, I mean, it's not like he's been here forever, but it feels like he has, because most of his injuries happened before the season started. And I mean, that's a great call, because he really was, in my opinion, a free agent steal in this offseason. I mean, he's just a phenomenal player.
Yeah, they didn't pay hardly anything for him.
No, he like peanuts. And, to see him actually do what he's been able to do is just amazing. Before we go, a quick prediction on the Lions-Packers game. Who do you got?
I guess it's already underway, but where's it at? Is it Detroit?
It's at Detroit.
I can't go against Detroit in Detroit. If it was in Green Bay, I might go with them, especially if it was snowing. But I think Detroit's one of those teams that just on that turf, it's just kind of like the Rams back in the day. They're so fast. It's just they're explosive. So yeah, I'll stick with the Lions, even though I think it'll be a close game.
I'm actually going to go with the Packers.
Ooh,
yeah. I just think that with Jordan Love, he's actually healthy this time. He wasn't really 100% when they played last time in the rain. I think that the Packers actually beat them. I mean, it took Eberflus to beat us last week. So, I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Isaac must be brainwashing you.
No, he's definitely not. But I still won't say their tagline. Anyway, folks, thank you for sticking with us. We know that we ran over a little bit. We're about to shut it down right now. I hope everyone is having a great day.
Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Happy belated Thanksgiving. And are we coming back next week?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sweet.
Definitely.
He's going on vacation. So we'll see you next week, 7:15 p.m. Eastern time, right here. Y'all have a nice night.
Take care.
Can't accept the loss, I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting nobody rob me of my victory. Number one, that's what I'm meant to do. When by any means, only thing that makes sense to me, I can make nice or make history. I got that dog in me, turn me up. Big energy, got the crowd going nuts. I got that dog in me, I take on anyone, I don't need a one-on-one. I got that dog in me, I'm talking all bite, no bark. I could rip your squad apart. I got that dog.